It's time to bottle our last batch of mead, since we're leaving Germany permanently and moving back to the United States. We used to bottle in these apothecary bottles on the right with the temporary corks, but now we're going slightly more professional. That first batch that's already done is maple syrup mead, and the second batch here is pear. Now there's more appropriate names for this, like honey wine or a sugar wine. We're just calling it all mead because that's how we started, with just honey and apples, which is technically a sizer, but we're gonna just call it mead or wine throughout this video and be inaccurate about it. I do need to add a valve on the end of the siphon line so I can more easily turn it off, because filling these bottles was fun, but I made a mess several times. Whether we're using sugar, maple syrup, or honey as a sweetener, we always bring the specific gravity up to 1.13. That gives us a potential alcohol content of 17%. However, the yeast usually dies off at 13 to 15%. That ensures that we have a slightly sweet taste without having to back sweeten. Now, if you're doing this yourself, realize that the mixture is going to be extremely murky for the first 2 months before it starts to clarify. Here, I cut the video before I show the mess that I made. We're using a very simple corker here off of Amazon, like 20 bucks. There are much nicer ones that press it in on a stand, but since I'm doing small batches, it's not that hard to just push the corks in. There's a tapered tube in there that compresses a cork prior to it going in the bottle, so that when it gets in there, it's nice and tight. Even with a cheap hand jammer style corker, we had 0 leaks with all of these bottles. Bottle cost is about $1.10 if you include the cork, so we're not too worried about the expense when we're making a small batch like this. The last one gets a tapered cork because we're going to be drinking this one right away. There's no reason to store it long term. If you're interested in supporting the channel and you want to get something out of it, I published my survival manual, Don't Die, a survival manual. And don't worry, it's not as boring as most survival manuals. It's actually chock full of jokes and real life stories of my experiences, so you can have some fun while you're reading it. It's available on Kindle, paperback, and hardcover. I'm extremely happy with how these turned out. I did all the cover artwork and I tried to capture that feeling of, yes, it's a survival manual, but also you'll probably get a couple of laughs out of it as well. I went ahead and put a link in the description in the comments below if you're interested.